Minister, under the Constitution, the total number of members of this House, Dáil, has to be at least one member per 30,000 of population. The Economic and Social Research Institute, the ERSI, are forecasting that by the year 2040, Ireland's population will have grown by more than 900,000 people on the current numbers. The CSO predict a highest growth scenario over the next 30+ years of double that number, which would put Ireland's population at more than 7 million in the year 2057. Minister, that would mean that the number of TDs in this House would also have to increase from its current total of 160 to almost 240 members. If you look at the chamber here, we wouldn't be able to accommodate that number of Dáil deputies. We would have to build a new chamber to cater for the increased number of TDs and additional offices, as well as funding for all the associated parliamentary staff and support staff for each elected member. The cost of that would be in the hundreds of millions of euro. Minister, recently the keynote speaker at the Clifton Arts Festival was the former Attorney General, Minister for Justice, Taoiseach Michael McDowell. He made a very interesting point that if the United Kingdom used the same criteria to determine the number of MPs in their parliament, which would be one MP to every 30,000 people, instead of having 650 members of parliament, which they currently have, the House of Commons would have 2,400 members. The current figure of 650 members of the UK Parliament has remained constant for almost half a century, with little increase in the past 10 years. Spain, Germany, France and the Netherlands have an even lower proportion of MPs to population than the UK. So too has Italy, which held a constitutional referendum in 2020 that resulted in the reduction in the number of members of both of their houses. This was passed with a 70% majority of vote of the people, something I could easily see being repeated here in Ireland if it went to a referendum to vote to change our constitution. Minister, I'm not going to suggest here today what the number of TDs should be limited to. I think this question should be handed over to the Electoral Commission to examine, and I will be asking all members of the House to support this. And my question to you, Minister, is, will you and your party and your partners in government agree to support asking the Electoral Commission to look into the idea of placing a cap on the number of TDs and putting this to a referendum?
Thank you very much, Deputy. Well, I'm sure regardless of the size of any future Dáil, you still anticipate and want to play a very lively role within us, Deputy Grealish. And a question like this here this morning reminds me of why you very, very likely will. As you may indeed be aware, this is something that on Commission Tuacán have already indicated the willingness to consider. What they have done in a recent report that was published in August of 2023 is they've outlined that in advance of the next Commission, they want to commence what they have described as a national conversation. I'm sure there'll be many members of this Dáil who want to participate in it, including you, on whether Dáil Éireann should continue to grow to match the increase in population that we have had, which, if it were to happen in the way you have described, would mean that the Dáil will grow by around 2 TDs per year over the next number of years. I think, as I answer your question, it's important not to lose sight of something that I believe is very, very positive. The reason why we are seeing a growth in the size of the Dáil is because we are a growing country with a growing population, with more people living in it who deserve and require more representation. That is very positive. It can be at the heart of our prosperity and growth in the years ahead. My own view is that growth in population will continue to require the level of representation that our own Dáil has at the moment. And I'd be reluctant at the moment to put any cap on that. But I can assure you, doing leaders' questions and engagements like this are hard enough. If I was coming in here and saw the visitors' gallery full up with TDs as well, I'm sure it would make it an even more demanding occasion than it is. But I think if that is something that we have to contend with as a consequence of our country continuing to grow, I think that's a good thing. I'll be interested to see in what on Commission Tuacán recommend. I wouldn't like to see unlimited growth, but on the other hand, I do believe that the level of representation that we have within our country at the moment does broadly work and I wouldn't like to see any sudden change with regard to it.
Minister, over the past number of years, the Government have put several referendums to the Irish people, most recently and notably the 39th and 40th amendments, which were defeated earlier this year. The last referendums were badly thought out, impossible to clearly explain, and the resounding no vote made it clear that the people are not prepared to alter the Constitution without good reason. I believe that a proposal to cap the number of TDs, bringing Ireland's Parliament into line with other EU countries, would be a question that the Irish people should have an opportunity to decide, and it's something that should be explored further by the Electoral Commission. And I ask that you please give a commitment at least to explore this matter further. And Minister, it is a question I strongly believe should be put to the people. I think if we're going to see a Parliament grow up to over 240 people by 2050, that's going to put a huge strain. This chamber here will become redundant. You could be talking hundreds and hundreds of millions to build a new chamber and to support staff. So I think it's important, Minister, that we have the debate on this with the new Dáil. If I'm elected, I'll keep pushing it. If not, maybe somebody else will. But I think there should be a referendum put to the people and let the people decide what the members, how many members should be in this House, not us here in this House.
Thank you, Deputy. And I think the people have, in the various referenda that you have shown and you have referred to, I think they have shown care in making big changes to our Constitution. They have at other times shown a commitment and support for how the Oireachtas is currently represented. And I know that in your work in your constituency, as we all work within our constituency, a frequent issue that we have to deal with is, explaining the work that we do, making the case for the work that we do, and for the time we spend here in the Dáil and in the committees of the Oireachtas. I would take care with any changes that weaken the link between constituents and the politicians that serve them, because I think by and large it's a balance that we have got right within our country. But as I said to you, our Electoral Commission are looking into this matter and they plan to, I'm sure, publish a paper, publish some interventions in relation to this in the time ahead, and I've no doubt at all that will prompt and be a catalyst for the discussion that you're looking for here today.
Thank you, Minister.